Playing a spellcaster in Dungeons and Dragons is pretty cool, if I do say so myself. You get to do all sorts of amazing stuff, crazy magical powers, and many of the spells are so iconic that you need no introduction to them. Currently, in Dungeons and Dragons, or should I say normally, when you cast a spell, you expend a spell slot which is of equal to or greater than the level of the casted spell. And this is a pretty intuitive method and requires minor bookkeeping. However, this is not the method that I would consider the quote unquote classic form of spellcasting, which I'm going to call mana. Basically, this is a pool or well of magical energy that the spellcaster draws upon, with each spell taking a different amount of mana from that pool. In game terms, this means that instead of using one type of resource for one spell that's level 1, a level 1 spell slot, or a level 2 spell slot for a level 2 spell, you just spend more of the same resource. You don't have all these different levels of slots. And believe it or not, Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition fixes this with an alternate rule. The way this system works is that instead of spell slots, you instead have a number of spell points depending on your spell casting level, which also determines the maximum level of spells that you can cast. For half and third casters, you simply divide your level by the description of your abilities. So a 4th level paladin is a 2nd level spellcaster and has the abilities of that. Then each spell also has its own spell point cost. For example, instead of spending one first level spell slot, you instead spend two spell points. A second level spell costs 3, and then you can follow the chart above. Conceptually, this whole subsystem allows a spellcaster to be very pick and choosy with what spells they cast without having to worry about sticking to the rigidity of only having, you know, two second level spell slots. However, this greater versatility is pretty game changing. You gotta be pretty careful. A 5th level wizard could cast Fireball 5 times in the same fight and still have enough spell points for a shield spell later. Now, despite the ability to cast Fireball 5 times in the same fight, it's very powerful. You technically have the same amount of total resource as you would if you were using spell slots, as the conversion rate of each spell slot equals the amount of total spell points that you get according to this optional rule. Additionally, the meta magic ability of the sorcerer matches up perfectly as well. You basically just have extra spell points, and then you just spend those spell points as if they were sorcery points. This is a pretty massive buff compared to other spellcasters, and it makes sorcerers very good for spell manipulation. They can pull off some crazy stuff. It's very impressive. Now, it would be incredibly poor form of me to not mention the difficulties and downsides to using this optional rule during this semi-complete exploration. To start, warlocks cannot use this rule in any capacity. They are specifically omitted from the classes that have access to this rule, and at first that might suck, and that's what I thought at first. But after a little bit of thinking, I get it. It would remove all the quirks of playing a warlock and make their pact magic lose all its fun. It would just make them a wizard, and that's no fun at all. A worse sorcerer, basically. Now, additionally, some other minor abilities would have to be reworked in ways that are pretty mathy, unfortunately. The biggest example of this is the wizard's first level ability known as Arcane Recovery. Basically, they are allowed to restore an amount of spell slots equal to half their level on a short rest once per day. And at first, a first level wizard can regain one level 1 spell slot because it's rounded up. So you would just say 2 sorcery points, easy enough. That's fine for a one shot. But a third level wizard can regain 2 level 1 spell slots or 1 level 2 spell slots, because 3 divided by 2 would round up to 2, which have different costs of 4 and 3 respectively. This messes up the careful ratio that I described before and would give you overall more resource than you would have normally. The best suggestion I have would be to restore an amount equal to the cost of all level 1 spell slots, but that would give you more than usual. You would have to do some pretty tight math in order to figure this out. Additionally, only 1/6, 1/7, 1/8, and 1/9 spell may be casted per day. Once you cast it, it is simply gone until your next long rest. While this may seem pretty bad as first, and you lose out on a 6th and 7th level spell slot each, remember that if this rule wasn't in place at its most extreme, a level 20th spellcaster could cast Wish 10 times per day and still have a small amount of spell points left over, total of 3. To summarize, I really like this rule. It's conceptually very interesting to me, and it sounds really fun to me. Now, I am no stranger to added complexity. I've spent many hours trying to convince my group to play Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remastered, and I feel like the added versatility would make the game more fun, but this rule is definitely not for everyone. If you can't handle, all the math that would be involved, a lot of the numbers are odd, they're seemingly arbitrary until you look at other math, and you would have to use basically a bike lock or something to capture how many spell points you have left. This can add a lot to your games, and I would suggest trying it out once. Of course, I would say that I wouldn't make a video about it without enjoying it a lot. So, try it out, see what you think. Bye.